Announcements this morning are, please remember, if you've not yet handed in your pledge, it is pledge season. Alan Brooks and Jean Cahill are running the pledge again this year, doing stewardship. And Alan reminds us that if you are able to increase your pledge by 10%, please consider doing so. This will help fund your first year of your new minister. I want to make two thank yous that are not in the order of worship this morning. I want to thank Heather Finlay Morial for her artwork, which we are using again this morning. And we will have a song with Matt Myers during the offering. And it was not written by him. It was written by a Boston area clergy person whose name I could not find anywhere in my old emails. But we thank that person and Matt Myers, who will be singing it. And if you are inspired while we are listening to join in singing, it's a very simple song, but we'll do that when we get there. Your board president, Celia Brown, has an announcement this morning on Zoom.
Hello, everybody. I still have issue with that title, but anyways, I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'm battling vertigo. I'm learning a lot about it, and I'm saving myself up for the budget meeting with the board this afternoon. But this Friday is our big welcome and greeting for our new minister. And we start at 5:30 here in the meeting house and on Zoom. And then after 6:15-ish or so, people that were more comfortable greeting him in an outdoor space will do that if the weather permits, between the meeting house and Parish Hall. And then we'll have potluck. And so everybody bring a potluck and hopefully err on the side of having a dish that doesn't need to be really hot, because you probably want to drop it off at 5:30. But then I have a ask, which is that we anticipate lots of us will be there, and Barbara Robley and Caroline McDonald have been wonderful to kind of kickstart the potlucks this year. But they could really use some help setting up, so coming at 5, and then cleaning up afterwards. So please, if you are able to do that, Cindy, Leno, and Ann just text me and said they'll be there. And I know Andrew and Richard will be there, but if there's another 5 people or so, please let me know, okay? Thank you.
Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist Northboro. We Unitarian Universalists are a non-creedal, religiously liberal faith tradition. We hold in our worship and in our faith formation that each individual and each community will explore a wide and varied set of beliefs and ideas that encourage us to live life as a spiritual journey, deepening our connections to compassion, justice, and an understanding of eternal truths. I'm Reverend Abigail Stockman, the interim minister. If you have any questions about Unitarian Universalism or First Parish, please don't hesitate to be in touch with me or a member of the board or someone in the congregation. We are a community in multiple locations, so let's take a moment to greet one another by waving to those online and those around us until the chime is rung, which will lead us into our prelude. Spirit of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture, the kinder conclusion. To love and let live, to embrace and forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to be joined in a common purpose of hope and fulfillment. Renew and revive us. We seek a common holy ground for one and all. Amen. Our chalice this morning is going to be lit by Linda Cart. Linda, can't even say your names this morning. And Pete Mirswa, who we welcome back. Yay. May this be a light of a common holy ground that widens horizons and breaks down barriers and illuminates a wondrous love. Welcome back. Please rise in spirit, body as you can, and let us sing together number 18, What Wondrous Love Is This? It is also, the words will be on the screen. Our time for all ages this morning, is indeed a time for all ages, and it is, we will have some actors on the stage here. It will be myself. I will be playing 2 roles this morning, and Renee will be playing a role, and Celia will be playing a role on Zoom, and Lise is going to be another role player here. So this is a story for children, but I think we might gain something from it. A small town once had a big problem, a monster. I wonder what the townspeople did, you ask. Well, I'll tell you. People tried to go about their daily business, buying bread, going to the library, attending church. But often, just as they were walking out about town, the monster would suddenly appear. Then the people would run away in fear all the way home to their beds, where they'd slide underneath, skinning their knees, ouch. And this went on for a long time, until a large group came together to talk about this problem with the very wisest woman in town. The wise woman listened to their story and smiled and said,
"You must do 4 magical things to make this monster go away."
and the townspeople said,
Just 4 magical things? We can do that. What are these 4 magical things?
"Well, I don't know. You will have to go to the middle of town and listen carefully to find the answers."
Okay, but won't the monster get us in the middle of town?
Well, if you hold hands, the monster can't touch you.
So the group went off, holding hands, tiptoeing, and glancing around for the monster. And they went to the town square where they made themselves into a great big circle. And just as they finished making the circle, out of the dark came the biggest, hairiest, scariest, nasty-looking monster ever. The monster looked for somebody to grab, but needed someone who wasn't holding hands, and there wasn't anybody. This frustrated the monster. Now, here's the thing about monsters. When they get frustrated, they start to sing. So the monster sang, "Oh, you can't pick cherries, I know you can't. Oh, you can't pick cherries, I know you can't. Oh, you can't pick cherries, I know you can't. Chew your rock candy." And the townspeople said,
Of course we can pick cherries.
and they began to sing,
Oh, we can pick cherries, we know we can. Chew your rock candy.
and when they finished singing, they noticed that the monster was just a little smaller than before, and it was also a little more upset than before. How odd. So the monster sang, "You can't count your money, I know you can't." And the townspeople sang back,
Oh, we can't count money, we know we can.
and the monster was a little smaller and a little more upset. So it walked right up to one person in the circle and sang, "You can't do the eagle rock, I know you can't." And the townspeople frowned and said,
What is the eagle rock?
and the monster showed them by flapping his arms, hoping they would let go of each other's hands. But the townspeople flapped their elbows, held hands, and sang,
We can do the eagle rock, we know we can.
At this point, the monster was about the size of a guinea pig with an upset that was much larger than his body. So he sang the same song about dancing, and the townspeople responded by dancing and singing and still holding hands with one another. And when they finished, they sang the line,
Chew your rock candy.
and the monster disappeared. Well, the whole town joined together for another dance. The biggest, happiest, wildest dance you ever saw. And they were tired, so they rested. And they rested the way people rest when they know they are safe, when they know they have friends, and they have faced their fears and solved them together. Thus ends our story. Thank you all. We can deepen the bonds of community one to another through the sharing and witnessing of personal joys and sorrows. If you have a personal joy or sorrow marking a time of personal or family transition, transformation, or discernment, you are invited to come forward, drop some stones, and briefly share. May we hold the words of Julian of Norwich that all will be well, not because everything works out with the ending that we hope for, but because we hold one another in love no matter what the endings we face, and care and community. let us deepen into few moments of prayer. Let us just breathe in and out, because life often doesn't give us that time during the week. Just notice our bodies, the place where we are sitting or standing or lying down. Breathing in deeply and breathing out. Notice the sensation of the person who's sitting next to you, or the air and space around you. And let us just take a moment of silence. Let us continue prayer with these words of Ted Loder. Well, nameless of many names, we made it through another sweet, sour time. And here we are, nibbled, frazzled, puzzled, awed, and in need of what? A chuckle, maybe? A revolution begun with a belly laugh, a Bronx cheer in the face of the onslaughts of disaster and death itself. Such may be our need, and this is our wonder. Are you, nameless of many names, really as humorless, as grimly serious as we've made you out to be? Or do aardvarks and monkeys and bullfrogs and platypuses and puppies and porpoises and people, perhaps, reveal the comic side of your grace and the playful side of your love? Tickle us into giggling down the wailing walls of our endless grievances, and trip our waddling pomposities. Goddess of laughter as of tears, shake us awake and teach us to laugh at ourselves, at our black draped solemnity over our petty preoccupation with success and failure, through all the hurt and adversity, until our laughter lures us deep beneath the terrors without names, beneath the questions without answers, beneath the pain without relief. Lure us deep to the love in us unused, to the strength unspent, to the courage untapped, to the dream unranked, to the beauty unexpressed, all the way down to the inescapable bottom, to the awareness that we must get on with being who we are as fully as we can, as accurately as we can, which is to say, as gracefully, powerfully, and faithfully as we have been created to be. Amen. The financial offering each week is shared between the general operating fund of this church and a designated nonprofit. For the month of April, that nonprofit is the Healing Garden Cancer Support Center. They say this about themselves. They are a beautiful facility located in 8 acres of woodlands and gardens. Our cancer care complements medical care and is instrumental in improving quality of life for all those who are affected by cancer. We provide a community of support where clients participate in educational programs and classes, experiential stress-reducing activities, and individual therapeutic services to promote resiliency and recovery. We rely entirely on voluntary donations from people like you who are invested in helping those affected with cancer. May we here continue to be as generous as we are able. The offering for the work of this congregation and the work of the Virginia Thurston Healing Garden will now be gratefully received, and we hope gratefully and playfully given.
Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
Sing along if you want.
Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer. Singing, singing with you, singing with you is my prayer. Being with you, being with you is my prayer. Working with you, working with you is my prayer. Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
And receive it in the spirit of the shared hopes and values that it represents. Our reading this morning is a bit long, and it comes from a book called God Laughs and Plays by a man named David James Duncan. David James Duncan was raised in a very fundamentalist, he reports, fundamentalist evangelical Christian tradition. One which included, I think, a lot of sermons about the rapture, because he uses the idea of the rapture in his writing. This is a story, requires a little background. A group of avid, devoted fly fishers were taking a fly fisher friend named Norman McLean, who was dying of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. They were taking him on his very last fishing experience. All of them were active fly fishers and participated in advocacy groups such as Outdoor Conservation Alliance, 1% for the Earth, Save Our Wild Salmon, and others that were around at the time of the writing of this story. That groups that work to maintain the health of the ecosystem of the fish and the mayflies. In Duncan's words, it is a love that fly fishers have for the fish and the outdoors and the art of imitating the mayfly with delicate string and knots that he says leads to an allegiance to the health of wild waters, gorgeous wild fish, and wild lands. On this particular trip, on this particular day, this group of fly fishers are being hounded as they are trying to celebrate life and love among them as trout fishers and with their dear friend. They are being hounded by an animal rights activist who is standing there calling them trout torturers. So he says this about her after a while. The woman's tenacity and eloquence impressed me. They also pissed me off. This in turn caused me to breathe deeply, as I've trained myself to do through the years. Set aside my hot little head and sink into the heart, an organ that I find, if you have faith and know how to surrender to it, unfolds and unfolds in a most wonderful and unscientific manner, till it becomes the vastest and most pristine wilderness in existence. I did this. I unfolded my heart, and inside its wild vastness, my anger gave way to sudden affection for the feisty young activist. My joy in the heart's vastness, moreover, made me feel there might be a way to help her grow aware of her own interior vastness, and so perhaps become just a bit less doctrinaire. A way to do this, I thought, might be to improvise a story that combined the agony of trout with a little hilarity, and so hopefully raised my antagonist and me above the level of our impasse. To lead into my story, I asked the activist herself a question. I said, what about insect rights? By way of an answer, she went, huh? And made a funny, confused face. Fly fishers are called fly fishers, I continued, because our flies imitate insects. We are insect aficionados, insect admirers, or to use a term you might prefer, insect rights activists. Her lips vanished, her eyes narrowed, her brow furrowed, her nose crinkled, and as the ski dudes say, it was all good. As an insect rights activist, I continued, I'd like to ask if you don't mind, what about the aquatic bug's perspective? Is it only megafauna that deserve our sympathy? And he goes on like this for a while. And he finally decides to tell her this story about the trout and the mayflies. Mayflies begin life as fertilized eggs, he says, the size of a speckle of fine ground black pepper. That such a little speck can figure out all on its own how to grow 6 gracefully curved and articulated legs, and not 1 but 3 delicate tails, and not 2 but 4 gossamer wings, and a suit of armor, the exoskeleton, which it sheds not once but as many as 100 times as it grows. More miracles. The variety of mayflies, the extreme range of shapes, colors, sizes, the harmlessness of them astound me. Not one of these sun-feathered, river-mothered insects bites, stings, whines, or harasses. Adult mayflies don't even have mouths to harass with. After spending a year underwater as a nymph, there comes an evening when they are moved to swim for the first time ever to the river's surface, shed the armor they've spent their life in, slide their tender nude bodies into the open, seal their jaws shut, and commence a fast that will last the rest of their lives. Then they open their translucent wings they hadn't even known they had, dry them even as they navigate, and then flutter up into a ray of sunlight where they gather with other mayflies, all of them hovering like angels, in order to mate like rabbits. Think about this. Think about leaving everything you know behind, sealing your lips shut forever, to rise naked and fasting up into the sky, meet with other silent ones like yourself, copulate with them, and so preserve your kind and kingdom forever. Talk about sexy spiritual beings. If our human heaven is half that interesting, I can't wait to die. So before one declares fly fishing unjust, he says to this woman, we might spend a few hours during an intense hatch. Or you might think of it like the rapture. An intense hatch of mayflies watching those vicious opportunists, the trout, slashing, maiming, and devouring in a mayfly rights violating frenzy. Before we declare fly fishing unjust, we might study those monsters, the salmonids, which I assume is what the trout belong to in some biological categories, careening along the surface of the water like nuclear subs amongst a hatch of windsurfers, crunching and gulping victims before they can even open their sails. And who in all this sorrowful world is willing to invest time and extreme care to defend the angelic mayflies? Till a wily fly fisher sneaks up to the river's edge, makes a long light cast out into the orgy, and an artful scrap of divine justice alights on the surface of the water in the form of, say, a size number 16 gray drake mayfly, and then floats its way down toward the gorging trout. Touche, the mouthless, hapless mayflies think each time they see a trout hooked by a fly fisher leaping in sudden panic. And imagine, this is the really great part, the Twilight Zone tales that the trout will now tell to their fellow trout after they've been caught and released. It's an insect or animal rights dream come true. Picture a fresh caught and released 18-inch, I don't have great spatial concept, 18-inch rainbow trout with a mouth tough as a steel nutcracker, unharmed but for an acupuncture wound in its steel, but huffing from exhaustion and physically thunderstruck as it swims back to its run after losing a battle with a fly fisher. You could sort of see it skulking in the weeds, afraid to move, and the other trout, mouths full of innocent mayflies, asking, "Hey, Fifth, what's with you? The bug's running? Come on, munch up." "I was," gasped the enlightened trout. "I was inhaling mayflies like popcorn, just like you guys, when all of a sudden this little drake, no bigger than one of my teeth, stings me in the jaw. It just keeps stinging. I shake my whole body to twist it loose. That only infuriates it, and it starts dragging me by the jaw all over the damn river. I'm a 2-pound trout. The bug weighs, what, 1/1000th of an ounce? It's embarrassing. I try to kill it by chomping on it, jumping to get rid of it, swimming fast as a lightning to outrun it, and nothing works. I go one way, it drags me the other. I dive to the bottom, it hauls me up. It's tiny, it's ridiculous. It's straight from hell. That little bug beat me. Finally, I'm wasted, I'm thrashing on my side. It won. I think I'm a broken fish, but it's tired too, surely. It'll let me go now. Well, that demon bug dragged me right up onto dry land. It's strong as a freaking moose. It beat me senseless, and it only made it hungry. It's gonna eat me, I realize, tiny as it is. And I'm thinking this is the end. Goodbye, river, goodbye, moon, goodbye, sun. I've had it. Except you guys won't believe this part. You really won't. Right there, the mayfly dragged me out of the water. This nice fly fisher happens to be standing there, and no sooner does he see me than he rescues me, pulls the demon drake out of my lip, cradles me like his own baby there in the shallows, and releases me into the current, just as nice as you please. The other trout are gawking. "You've got to be kidding me," they say. "Kidding?" says the caught and released trout. "Man, I'm praying. From this day forward, my prayer is thank God for fly fishers." You can imagine what the activist trout torturer thought at this point. Duncan writes, "The night I first concocted this story, another natural miracle happened. A young animal rights activist and an incurable fly fisher made friends." And even better, I saw when I later recounted this diplomatic breakthrough, a guy in our audience, another fly fisher, an apostle of perfect moments and fly fisher of the most unapologetically dweeby sort, all bent over in the wilderness of his diapers and wheelchair in the last couple of weeks of his life, laughing like there is no tomorrow. Thus ends the reading. It's a long reading. It'll be a shorter sermon, I promise. Or I'll try. Not now that all your worry has proved such an unlucrative business, begins a poem by 14th century Sufi mystic poet Hafez. Why not find a better job? Seriousness and worry have a lot in common. They announce their own self-importance and value in the intensity of their very nature. Letting them go can often appear like an act of reckless abandon. That was how the young activists felt. As if when we let them go, life's hard realities will fall upon us harder than they already do. There was a time in my life where there was a lot of difficult tension in the household where my children and I were living. It was soon to be our first Christmas together as just the three of us, and it held a lot of tension of its own. And there was a particular day when all that tension came to the surface, and the adults had not perhaps been on their best, most adult behavior. And this too resulted in a lot of tears and tensions and angers in the household. Now, at that time, we always received a holiday gift from Southern friends, which was a large box of pecans. That particular year, my children had just seen the Nutcracker Ballet and read the story and asked for a nutcracker for Christmas. So we were all in this moment of anger and tear and tension with all the attendant crying and wailing, and I had this bowl of pecans and with some chestnuts mixed in, waiting for the moment when the nutcracker would be given so that it could be used. Instead, this moment of tension and anger called for putting all those nuts on the wooden floor, and we began jumping on them while we cried and wailed. My children saw me start this and very quickly joined with me, and we all jumped on these nuts, making a fine mess of the floor. All of a sudden, my son says, "Mommy, we're human nutcrackers." And we all begin laughing through the tears until we're laughing so hard we started crying again. The story's humor is not so much in the fact that we laughed or that there was anything funny about jumping up and down on nuts. It was that in the moment a transformation from hurt and anger and fear into laughter at what we had done and how serious we had become with all that tension. The hurt remains, but we had an outlet, a safe way to express the anger and the hurt that became its handmaidens. The animal rights activist still has a right to advocate for the animals, but perhaps with a wider perspective of what that might mean. Laughter and humor, lightness and play in the presence of life's enduring and difficult realities take seriously those realities and truths about life, but offers us a way to transform our perspective, to work with our emotions and feelings that can feel like they are real and keep us stuck forever in fear and anger. Perspective about life's complexities, and life is complex, is hard to maintain when we ourselves are taking it so very seriously. And it's not that there isn't a moment and a time and a place for seriousness. But perspective is good, a little bit like this perspective. God is dead was written on the restroom wall, Nietzsche's famous quote. A starkly realistic humorist addended below it, Nietzsche is dead, God. Humor helps us to sit face to face with our inability to be in control of so much of life. I've been through some terrible things in my life, wrote Mark Twain, some of which actually happened. Because we also make up in our minds. We make things worse, we expand them, we make them rigid and forever. We find it hard to see the rest of the world when all we see is disaster, trauma, difficulty, loss. Not that we don't have those things, they're very real. But they can cloud our vision and become all we see. Humor can help us stand back. Humor reminds us that, as Hafez says, worry is indeed an unlucrative business. And humor lifts our spirits. Our humors, as the language of 14th to 17th century medicine, called much of our emotions and physical well-being. But I don't want to be a punster at this hour on a Sunday morning. Humor is always good at reminding us not to take ourselves, our beliefs, or our ideas or worldviews too seriously. When we take our beliefs too seriously, can look like this joke. The flood was coming, word was sent to the local community on a Sunday morning to evacuate. The rescue team arrived to take people out of their homes, and in this particular case, out of the church where they were sitting before the flood arrived. And the minister, like the captain of a sinking ship, stayed in his pulpit. They told the minister to come with them, but he said, "No, I'm waiting for God, he'll save me." Soon the water rose, and the minister was forced to go up into the balcony of the sanctuary. A rescue boat came, but he told them, "No thanks, I'm waiting for God, he'll save me." Soon the minister was forced onto the roof of the church, and a rescue helicopter came, but he told them, "No, I'm waiting for God, he'll save me." The water rose, and the minister drowned, and on his arrival in heaven, He asked God, why didn't you save me? I waited for you, but you never came. And God replied, I came 3 times. First, I came for the rescue people, then I came in a boat, and then I showed up in a helicopter. When we take our beliefs too seriously, humor has its place, but it can also be cruel and made at the expense of someone's differences or out of our own ignorance and discomfort with differences. Humor can sometimes be a mere exercise in intellect, as when we are witty. It can be used in a group to decide who's in and who's out, who gets it and who doesn't, thereby excluding, judging, and drawing invisible but painful lines. Humor can also be used to deny or distance ourselves from painful realities, rather than bring us into direct encounter with their inevitability and our lack of control. But it is the humor in service of deep belly laughs and playfulness, with full knowledge of life's hardness, pains, and whimsical nature, that can invite us into being transformed and changed by its presence. Trout, indeed, are sometimes killed. We don't know what it's like for a trout. Maybe they are tortured. But it's also possible that the world is wider than just 2 points of view give us. And Duncan's story widened the world for the activist, for himself, and for everyone who reads his book. When humor is in service of deep belly laughs and playfulness, when it's full of life's knowledge about the hardness and pain, life is what happens while we are busy making other plans. And humor as playfulness with life itself is at the heart of a spiritual discipline. Playfulness as an intentional encounter with life from a perspective that's not stern or grave or stoic or judgmental or critical or frozen, but wise. Playfulness acknowledges that we have little control over the events and life is full of absurdities, but facing them like the monster can make them smaller and smaller and smaller, and sometimes helps them disappear. Not always. Some of life's difficulties and sadnesses and traumas, they don't go away. But playfulness helps us encounter them so that we can live and live more fully and engage life more fully. Rumi, a contemporary of Hafez's, whose poetry is also full of humor and playful invitation, says this about playfulness. I used to live in a cramped house with confusion and pain, but then I met the friend, which is how he speaks of God, and started getting drunk and singing all night. Confusion and pain started acting nasty, making threats with talk like this. If you don't stop all that fun, we're leaving. Sound like a monster we heard earlier today? In the end, Duncan saw his friend and colleague whose body was in physical agony, doubled over in hilarity with tears of laughter at the situation and the story with the activists. Mark Twain says the human race has really only one effective weapon, and that is laughter. May we encourage ourselves and each other into more playfulness with life, congregationally and personally, thereby increasing our capacity for that playfulness and humor and laughter which bolsters the humors of our daily lives and increases our capacity for flexibility and joy in response to life's harsh realities, known and unknown. May the force of laughter and humor be with us all. Amen. Please rise in spirit, body as you are able. Let us sing number 354. We laugh, we cry. And I think we will probably only sing a few verses. And I will say thank you, Linda, for putting all the verses. Extinguish this chalice, but may we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Worship has ended. But may your week ahead be blessed with the spirit of playfulness and laughter, and may we bring that blessing to those around us and the wider community. Amen.
we can recycle it outside.